My father declared your brother's future matters more. You're just an afterthought, while sitting at my dinner table. So I listened calmly, cleared the dishes, and handed him eviction papers from the $1.5 million house I owned. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, say hello below, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything. Let's continue. The roasted chicken sat untouched on my father's plate while he gestured wildly with his fork, explaining why Lucas needed another $50,000 for his investment opportunity. I watched steam rise from the mashed potatoes I'd spent 2 hours perfecting, my hands folded in my lap like I was sitting in church. Your brother has real potential, Naomi, Dad said, his voice carrying that familiar edge of dismissal. This tech startup could change his life. Change all our lives. I'd heard this song before. Different verse, same tired melody. Lucas was 34, 6 years older than me, and hadn't held a job longer than 8 months since college. But in Dad's eyes, my brother walked on water while I apparently crawled through mud. Dad, I actually wanted to talk about something important tonight. I started, but he cut me off with a wave. Not now, sweetheart. This is serious business. Adult conversation. He turned to Lucas, who smirked at me from across my own dining table. Your sister doesn't understand investment strategies. She's good with numbers in her little accounting job, but this requires vision. My little accounting job. I was a senior financial analyst at a Fortune 500 company, pulling in 6 figures. I'd bought this house with my own money 3 years ago, all $1.5 million of it. That little accounting job. Lucas leaned back in the chair I'd imported from Italy. Come on, Nay. Family helps family. Unless you're suddenly too good for us. My mother's voice echoed from my childhood. Take care of your brother, Naomi. He needs more help than you. You've always been so capable. Capable. Their favorite word for me. Translation. You'll figure it out yourself because we're busy propping up your brother. I've given Lucas money 4 times in the past 2 years, I said quietly, meeting Dad's eyes. $32,000 total. None of it repaid. That's what family does. Dad's fist hit my table, rattling the wine glasses. You act like we're strangers asking for handouts. I raised you. I put a roof over your head for 18 years. Something cold settled in my chest. You're absolutely right, Dad. You did put a roof over my head. I stood, beginning to clear the plates. And now I've been putting a roof over yours for 14 months. Rent-free. The silence that followed was delicious. Lucas recovered first, laughing nervously. What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. I carried dishes to the kitchen, my heels clicking on the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself. When you lost your condo, Dad, I offered you my guest house. Temporarily, you said. Just until you got back on your feet. Dad's face flushed purple. Are you seriously bringing up helping your own father? What kind of daughter? The kind who pays property taxes on a $1.5 million home while her father eats her food, uses her utilities, and tells her she's just an afterthought compared to her brother's future that matters more. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. I never said those exact words. You said them 20 minutes ago. I pulled out my phone, fingers steady despite the rage coursing through my veins. Would you like me to play the recording? I've been documenting our conversations for 3 months now, ever since you told Aunt Denise that I was getting too big for my britches and needed to be taken down a peg. Lucas's face went ashen. You've been recording us? In my own home? Absolutely. I pulled a folder from the kitchen drawer. I'd prepared it this morning, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. I'm not doing this to be cruel. I'm doing this because I've spent 28 years being invisible unless you needed something. I spread papers across the counter. Bank statements. Receipts. A detailed spreadsheet because, yes, I am good with numbers. 14 months of free rent. Fair market value for the guest house. $3,000 monthly. That's $42,000. Utilities average $400 monthly. That's $5,600. Food, because you eat here 4 nights a week. Roughly $8,000. Total, $56,600. You kept track. Dad's voice cracked with disbelief in something else. Hurt maybe. I squashed the guilt trying to bloom in my chest. I kept track because I needed to know the truth, I said. The truth about how much I give and how little I receive. Not money. I don't care about the money. Respect, Dad. Recognition. Love that isn't conditional on how useful I am. Lucas finally found his voice. This is insane, Naomi. You're really going to charge Dad rent? Your own father. No, Lucas. I'm not going to charge him. I watched hope flicker across their faces before I extinguished it. I'm going to ask him to leave. Both of you actually. You've been temporarily staying in my guest room for 3 months, Lucas. Ever since your girlfriend kicked you out. That's different, Lucas started. Is it? I pulled out another document. You told me you needed a place to stay while you looked for an apartment. Instead, you've been using my address to register your new sports car. A $60,000 BMW, Lucas. Bought 2 weeks after you borrowed $5,000 from me for rent security deposits. The color drained from his face. You went through my mail? Your mail that's delivered to my house? Your insurance documents that came to my address? I didn't have to go through anything. I just had to open my eyes. My voice remained calm, steady. Mama taught me never to yell when you could cut deeper with cold precision. Dad stood, his chair scraping against my floor. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude stops now. I'm still your father. You will respect me. I have respected you, I said, meeting his eyes without flinching. I respected you enough to open my home. To open my wallet. To swallow every dismissive comment, every comparison to Lucas, every time you made me feel small. But respect is a two-way street, Dad. And you've been driving the wrong way for years. The front door opened and my grandmother rolled in, her wheelchair gliding across the threshold. At 78, Grandma Cece was sharper than most people half her age, and she'd promised to arrive by 8:30. Perfect timing. Oh good, she said, surveying the scene with knowing eyes. You finally did it. Mama, what are you doing here? Dad's tone shifted, uncertain now. My granddaughter invited me. Unlike some people, I don't need to be summoned only when I'm useful. Grandma Cece positioned herself near the dining table, her hands folded over the blanket on her lap. Walter, we need to talk about how you've been treating this child. Stay out of this, Dad warned, but his voice lacked conviction. Nobody told Grandma Cece what to do. I will not stay out of it. I stayed out of it when you showed up to Naomi's college graduation 30 minutes before it ended because you were helping Lucas move apartments. I stayed out of it when she made partner at 26 and you spent dinner talking about Lucas's new girlfriend. I stayed out of it when she bought this house, this magnificent house, and you said, must be nice to have money to waste. Each word landed like a hammer blow. Dad's shoulders hunched. Grandma, you don't have to, I started, but she raised her hand. Yes, I do. Because I've watched you dim your light for this family, baby girl. I watched you make yourself smaller so Lucas could feel bigger. I watched you accept crumbs when you deserved the whole feast. Her voice cracked. And I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. Grandma Cece pulled out her own folder. We'd coordinated this intervention like a military operation. Let me tell you what I've witnessed. When Naomi was 14, she won a national science competition. Full scholarship to space camp. You know what your father said, Lucas? Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Grandma. He said, that's nice, baby, but your brother has a basketball tournament that week, so we can't drive you. Naomi never went to space camp. She sold the scholarship to another student and used that money to buy Lucas new basketball shoes because his were worn out. My throat tightened. I'd forgotten about that. When she was 16, she got her first job. Saved every penny for 2 years to buy herself a used car. The day before she planned to buy it, Lucas wrecked his vehicle. You convinced her to give him her savings for a down payment on his new one. She rode the bus for another year. She never told me that, Dad whispered. Because she's a good daughter. Because she wanted you to be proud of her. But you were too busy being proud of him. Grandma pointed at Lucas, her finger trembling with emotion. That boy has taken and taken and taken, and you enabled him every step. And this girl? This beautiful, brilliant, generous girl? You treated her like a backup plan. I pressed my palm against the counter, steadying myself. Hearing it all laid out like this in someone else's voice made it real in a way my own thoughts never had. I love both my grandchildren, Grandma continued, her voice softer now. But love without accountability is just enabling. And I'm done enabling this dysfunction. This is ridiculous. Lucas exploded, jumping to his feet. So what, Naomi's been keeping score all these years? It's healthy. That's what family does. No, Lucas. Family doesn't keep score, I said quietly. But family also doesn't treat each other like ATMs with heartbeats. And since you mentioned it, let's talk about scores. I pulled up my banking app on my phone, projecting it onto my TV screen. Smart home features had their uses. This is the $5,000 you borrowed in March for rent deposits. Here's your car purchase 2 weeks later. This is the $3,000 you needed in June for medical bills. Here's your vacation in Miami 3 days later, posted all over Instagram. Each image appeared on the screen. Lucas on a yacht, Lucas at a club, Lucas living his best life on my money. You went through my social media? His voice was incredulous. Your public social media, yes. The one where you post everything. Did you know I'm not even in your bio? Your girlfriend, your boys, your favorite brands. All listed. But not your sister who's funded your lifestyle for 2 years. Dad sank back into his chair. Lucas, is this true? She's twisting things. Those were different situations. Which situation was different? Grandma Cece's voice cut through his excuses. The time you borrowed money for job interview clothes and bought concert tickets? The time you needed emergency car repairs and got bottle service at the club? I see those pictures too, baby. I might be in a wheelchair, but my eyes work just fine. Lucas's face crumbled, and for a second I saw him as he was. Not the golden child, but a man-child who'd never learned to stand on his own. I walked to my home office and returned with 2 envelopes. My hands didn't shake. I'd cried all my tears the night before, mourning the family I'd wanted instead of accepting the one I had. These are 30-day eviction notices, I said, placing them on the table. Legally, since neither of you has a lease and you've been here long enough to establish residency, I have to formally evict you. My attorney prepared these yesterday. Your attorney? Dad's voice was hollow. You lawyered up against your family? I protected myself, Dad. There's a difference. I sat down across from them, forcing myself to look at their faces. For 30 days you can stay here under specific conditions. You respect my space, you contribute to groceries, and you speak to me with basic courtesy. After 30 days you need to be gone. Naomi, please. Dad's voice cracked and I saw him differently now. Older, smaller, afraid. I know I haven't been perfect, but throwing us out? You threw me out first, I said softly. Every time you dismissed me, every time you prioritized Lucas, every time you made me feel like I was less important. You threw me out of this family a little bit. I'm just making the living arrangements match the reality. Grandma Cece wheeled closer to me, her hand finding mine. Her grip was weak but steady. Lucas grabbed his envelope, ripping it open. This is dated 3 days ago. You've been planning this. I've been gathering courage for this, I corrected. There's a difference. I wanted to believe things would change. That you'd wake up one day and see me. Really see me. I see you, Dad insisted. No. You see what I can do for you. That's not the same thing. Dad's phone rang, shattering the tension. He glanced at it, then at me, guilt flashing across his face. I need to take this. Answer it here, I said firmly. No more secrets in my house. He hesitated, then answered on speaker. Hello. Mr. Davis? This is Sandra from Community Trust Bank. I'm calling about the loan application we discussed. You mentioned you'd be using your daughter's property as collateral. My blood turned to ice. What? Dad's face went gray. He fumbled with the phone, taking it off speaker, but it was too late. The banker's voice had been clear as crystal. Grandma Cece gasped. Walter, what did you do? I can explain. Dad started, but I was already dialing. What loan? My voice came out steady cold. What application? Lucas stood frozen, his face telling me he knew something. You knew. I said, staring at my brother. You knew about this. It was supposed to be a surprise. Lucas blurted out. Dad was going to invest in my business and then we'd pay you back with interest. You'd make money. You tried to steal my house. The words fell like stones into still water, ripples spreading outward. You tried to use my home as collateral without my permission. That's fraud, Dad. That's actual criminal fraud. Dad ended his call, his hands shaking. I wasn't stealing anything. I was going to tell you. When? After you'd forged my signature? After you'd put my home at risk for Lucas's latest scheme. My composure cracked, emotion bleeding through. How could you? The question hung in the air, unanswered because there was no good answer. You want to know the worst part? I stood, pacing now, energy too wild to contain. It's not the money. It's not even the fraud attempt. It's that I would have helped if you'd just asked. If you'd treated me like a person instead of a resource. Baby girl, Dad reached for me but I stepped back. No. Let me finish. When I was 9 years old you forgot my birthday because Lucas had a playoff game. When I was 13 I fractured my wrist, but we couldn't go to the hospital because Lucas needed his braces tightened. When I was 23 and bought my first condo, you asked if Lucas could stay there, temporarily, after his lease ended. He stayed for 18 months and never paid a dime. Each memory spilled out like poison I'd been holding in. I graduated summa cum laude. You missed the ceremony because Lucas needed help moving. I made junior analyst at 24, youngest in my firm's history. You told me not to get cocky, that pride comes before the fall. When I bought this house you said I was showing off, wasting money on unnecessary luxury. Tears streamed down my face now but my voice stayed strong. And through it all I kept showing up. Kept loving you. Kept hoping that one day you'd see me as more than Lucas's sister. More than the responsible one, more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I wiped my face roughly. But you didn't. And you won't. Because you don't want a daughter. You want a safety net. Dad's face crumpled. That's not true. I love you. Maybe you do. But you don't like me very much, do you? You don't respect me. You don't value me unless I'm useful. The truth settled over us like a shroud. You know what the saddest part is? Grandma Sesse's voice was soft but cut through the room. I enabled this too. I watched it happen and told myself boys need more help, that Naomi was strong enough to handle it. But strength isn't infinite. Even mountains erode. She turned to Dad, her son, and I saw generations of pain in her eyes. Your father did this to you, Walter. Made you compete with your brother for scraps of attention. And instead of breaking the cycle you repeated it. You turned Lucas into what you were, the favorite who never learned to stand alone. And you turned Naomi into what I was, the capable one who carried everyone else's weight until her back broke. Dad's shoulders shook. Mama. No, baby. You need to hear this. You need to understand what you've done. She looked at me with such sadness. And Naomi, sweet girl, you need to understand this isn't your fault. You didn't fail them. They failed you. Something inside me broke open, not with pain but with release. Permission to let go. Lucas finally spoke, his voice small. I didn't know it was like this. I thought you liked helping. You never complained. Because I loved you, I said simply. I loved you so much that I set myself on fire to keep you warm. But I'm done burning, Lucas. A knock at the door interrupted us. I opened it to find Detective Patricia Mills. Someone I'd consulted with last week when I discovered the loan application attempt. Miss Davis? I'm here to follow up on the fraud report you filed. Dad's face went white. Lucas backed toward the wall. You called the police? Dad whispered. I reported a crime, I corrected. Which is what citizens do. Detective Mills sat at my dining table, her notepad open, her expression professionally neutral. Mr. Davis, I need to ask you some questions about the loan application submitted to Community Trust Bank on November 15th. This is a family matter, Dad protested weakly. Attempted fraud using forged documents is a criminal matter, sir. The bank flagged the application when the signatures didn't match their records. Detective Mills looked at me. Ms. Davis, You never authorized the use of your property as collateral? Never. I never even discussed any loan with my father. I pulled up my phone records. I have documentation showing our text conversations. No mention of any loan or business investment was ever discussed. I wasn't going to actually do it. Dad insisted. It was just to see if we'd qualify. Dad, stop talking, I said firmly. You're making it worse. Lucas slumped in his chair. This is all my fault. I pushed him. I told him Naomi would never agree to invest in my business, so we had to find another way. You conspired together? Detective Mills made notes. No. Both Dad and Lucas shouted simultaneously. Grandma Cece watched everything unfold with sad eyes. Detective, if I may ask, what happens now? That depends on Ms. Davis. If she wishes to press charges, we'll proceed with a full investigation. If she chooses not to, we'll close the case, but the bank will likely blacklist both men from future loans. All eyes turned to me. The power in that moment was intoxicating and terrible. I could destroy them with a word. I could send my father to jail, ruin Lucas's credit permanently, burn every bridge and salt the earth behind me. I need time to think, I said finally. Can I have 24 hours? Detective Mills nodded. Call me tomorrow with your decision. She handed me her card and left, her presence having shifted everything. The room felt hollow after she left. That night I sat in my bedroom while Dad and Lucas packed in silence. Grandma Cece had stayed, sleeping in my room with me like she did when I was little and scared of thunderstorms. What are you going to do, baby? She asked softly. I don't know. I stared at the ceiling, tears sliding sideways into my hair. Part of me wants to press charges. Wants them to feel consequences for once. But another part. The part that still loves them? Yes. My voice broke. How do I still love them, Grandma? After everything. Because love isn't logical. It doesn't require deserving. It just is. He reached for my hand. But love also doesn't mean letting people destroy you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. At sunrise I made my decision. I called Detective Mills and told her I wouldn't press charges, but I wanted the investigation documented. Then I called my attorney and had him draft a formal cease and contact order. Dad and Lucas were to leave and we would have no relationship going forward. When they left that afternoon I didn't watch them go. I stayed in my room, Grandma Cece holding me while I sobbed, not for who they were but for who I'd needed them to be. 3 months later I received a letter from Dad. I understand now, it said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it was too late. Some breaks don't heal. I still live in my house. I still excel at my job. But the hole where my family should be never filled. I learned that standing up for yourself sometimes means standing alone. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people you love when they refuse to love you back the way you deserve. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and remember, you deserve to be more than an afterthought in your own life. Sometimes the family you need is the one you choose, not the one you're born into. I set boundaries. I chose myself. And even though it broke my heart, I'd do it again. Because I finally learned what Grandma Cece had been trying to teach me all along. You can't pour from an empty cup, and some people will drain you dry if you let them. The end came not with triumph but with quiet grief. And the hard-won knowledge that sometimes, survival means letting go of the people who refuse to hold you gently. If you or someone you know is dealing with family toxicity, please reach out for support. You are not alone.